Hey there, I'm Carolyn Zucky. Let me introduce today's project, Chomp the Shark. It's part of my So Cute You'll Want to Make 10 series of quick and easy scrap-busting Amigurumi projects. And yes, I did end up making 10 of them. They're just so cute. There are a few options in this pattern. You can choose blushing cheeks or gills, and either shark teeth or a sweet little smile. You can probably tell I have a favourite. I made 7 with blushing cheeks and only 3 with gills, and all but one ended up with teeth. You can change the size of your little shark by swapping the yarn weight and hook size, and you can make them from any kind of yarn. They're great stash busters. You'll only need around 6 to 10 grams for small sharks or around 40 grams to make a plushy one. They're a quick make. It takes about an hour, so they're perfect for small gifts, market stalls, and those I need a gift tomorrow moments. They're also really cute as little accessories for keys, phones, and backpacks. If you prefer a written pattern, the PDF is available in my Etsy and Ravelry shops. Links are in the description. I usually like the tiny ones the best, but wow, this one is so cute. It's snuggly and sweet, and it's my kids' favourite one too. For this tutorial, I'll be using Abbey Road Sunshine Cotton in push top colour. It's 100 grams, 100% cotton, and 210 metres per ball. And I'm using that so that you'll easily be able to see how I crochet that fin into the body as we crochet our little shark. These other fins are sewn on later. You'll need white cotton for the teeth, and depending on whether you're going to make blushing cheeks or gills, you'll need some embroidery yarn and a needle or a crochet hook. And of course you'll need some stuffing. And depending on which eyes you choose to make, you'll need some safety eyes or some embroidery thread to make your little eyes. If you're making a shark for a child under 3, please embroider the eyes instead of using safety eyes. They are a choking hazard. We'll start with making the side fins. The side fins point toward the back. So this side points this way and this side points this way. We can't make 2 of exactly the same thing, or this one will be pointing up and this one will be pointing down and they'll look different. So we need to make a left side and a right side. The fins are worked into a magic ring. So wrap the yarn around your fingers and make a very small loop. Put your hook through the center and pull through a loop. Get ready to crochet and do a single chain. Then put your hook through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops to make a single crochet, and we'll make another one as well, so it's 2 single crochets to start with. Through the center, yarn over, pull through a loop, then yarn over and pull through both loops. Now we're going to do a half double crochet, so yarn over, put your hook through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop. You now have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to do a 2 chain picket. So do 2 chain. And to do a picket, you need to go into the stitch. Some people go into the front of the stitch here, and other people use the little loop below. I prefer to use the little loop below. So put your hook through that little loop below, yarn over and pull through a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on your hook as well. So it's a slip stitch. That's going to make that little point at the end of the fin. Now we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches to end. So go through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, yarn over on the outside and pull through both loops. And one more, through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, then on the outside, yarn over and pull through both loops. And that's all you need to make your fin. Snip off a short yarn tail, then use the hook to pull that yarn through the loops. Then we're going to pull the center of the magic ring closed. So here's the yarn from the center of the magic ring. We're just going to pull that until it's closed. Don't pull so tight that you're reducing the size of the stitches, it just needs to be closed. So there's our little right fin. It's got a point pointing backwards. And now we're going to tie those yarn tails together close to the work. So don't tie it off up here. Make sure that loop comes down and stays down close to where your stitches are. Like this. Make sure you don't tighten it so much that you pull that loop smaller. You're going to need to put your hook through there later. For the left side, we're going to do the opposite of what we did for the right side. So wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a magic ring loop, put your hook through the center, pull through a loop, get ready to crochet and do a chain. This time we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches. So the same as before, a single crochet and another single crochet. And then we're going to do the 2 chain picket. So do 2 chain, put your hook through whichever loop you prefer. I prefer the one down in underneath here. So there's the loop there. I like the one in behind there. That way I can keep a nice round loop on the top. So put it behind that little piece of yarn coming across the back, yarn over and pull through a loop and pull that same loop through the loop on your hook. Now we're going to do a half double crochet stitch. So yarn over, put your hook through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And to end we just need 2 single crochet stitches. So there's one, and here's the last one. And the same as before, snip off a short yarn tail, pull the loop on the hook large to pull it right through both of those loops there, and then we're going to close the magic ring. So pull that center of the magic ring closed, keep pulling until that's nice and secure. So it should be closed about that much, and now it should be pointing in the opposite direction. So we're going to do another knot in the yarn tails here so it doesn't come undone, and remember that you're trying to make this knot come down close to your work. My second loop isn't closing there properly. So make sure that's nice and tight. You can see that this is going to be the left fin, it's pointing back this way, and here's our little right fin. So there's our right and left fins. Don't worry about being confused, you can see quite clearly that that's the top side and that's the bottom side. The bottom side doesn't look quite as neat as the top side. I like to use an anchor loop in the end of my yarn. It's just a knot in the end of the yarn. By doing this, you can anchor your magic ring center, the yarn tail from the center of the magic ring, and it makes your toy very sturdy. That way you can throw it into the washing machine as many times as it needs to and it won't ever come undone. So we're going to start with a magic ring. So make a loop, put your hook through the center and pull through a loop, and get ready to crochet and do a chain to anchor it. We're going to start with 8 single crochet stitches. So put your hook through the center, yarn under and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. And repeat that another 7 times. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll close my magic ring just a little. Here's 6, 7, and 8. You can count them by counting the loops at the top. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you need to close your magic ring just enough so that you can reach the other side. Don't pull it tight now. If you pull the magic ring tight now, it makes round 2 harder to crochet. Insert a round marker, whatever you like. I just use a long piece of yarn here. And for round 2, we're going to do an increase and a single crochet repeated 4 times. So put your hook through that first space. Sometimes it's a little tight, but if you close that magic ring, it'll be even tighter. So we'll leave that loose now. Do another single crochet stitch. So yarn under and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops, and go through that same space again. So there's an increase. An increase is just 2 stitches in the same space, and then we're going to do a single crochet in the next space. So there's the first set, and we need 3 more sets to the end of the round. So do an increase and a single crochet 3 more times, and then we'll be finished that round. You should have 12 stitches at the end of the round. Now pull your loop large, and we're going to close that magic ring. The center has 1 loop and a half a loop going around, so you need to pull that closed enough that you will tighten both of those loops. So that's tight once. I can't pull it very tight anymore because of arthritis, so I actually use my anchor loop to help me close that as well. So just close the center of that magic ring nice and tightly. So there it is, nice and tightly, and get ready to crochet again. Move your round marker up for round 3, and in round 3 we're going to do an increase and then 2 single crochet stitches. So do an increase in that first space, there's 1 stitch, and I start trapping the yarn tail on the second stitch. So there's my increase, and then I'm going to do 2 single crochet stitches, 1 in each of the next spaces, and remember to trap that yarn tail as you crochet around. So there's 1, and here's 2. So that's the pattern we're repeating around this round. So there's an increase and 2 single crochets repeated 4 times. You should have 16 stitches at the end of the round. So there's an increase and a single crochet, and I need another single crochet, but one thing to remember is to just keep that taut so that it doesn't get loose inside your stitches and defeat the purpose of an anchor loop. Now I'm up to my knot. You'll meet your knot at a different point to me. Tuck that behind so we don't make a lump in our work, and we'll crochet forward 2 or 3 stitches. So here's my increase. So there's my increase, and I'll check I've gone past the knot now. So I'm going to crochet through the center of that anchor loop in the next stitch. So I've gone through my work. Now I'm going to go through the center of that anchor loop and do a single crochet stitch. Move on to the next stitch. Go through the center of that anchor loop again and do that stitch, and you can see now that that is nice and secure in there, and you'll be able to throw it into the washing machine and it won't come undone. So I need an increase and 2 single crochet stitches to the end of the round. Move your round marker up for round 4. And in round 4 we're going to do 3 single crochets and then an increase. So the pattern is 3 single crochets and an increase repeated 4 times. You'll have 20 stitches at the end of the round. Move your round marker up for round 5, and in this round we're just going to do a single crochet in each space all the way around. That's going to make our little shape start to cup. So just do a single crochet in each space all the way around, and I'll meet you at the start of round 6. For round 6 we're just going to do a single crochet in each space all the way around, but in this round we also need to mark the stitches for the eyes. So we're going to mark stitches 9 and 14. So here I'll just crochet forward 9 stitches. So now I've crocheted forward 9 stitches. I'll just check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm going to insert a marker here in that stitch and then crochet forward to stitch number 14. So that was 9, here's 10, and I'll use the other end of that marker there. Make sure it doesn't come undone. Stick that through there, and I'm using a different colour to the one that's marking my rounds so I don't accidentally pull that out. So now just do a single crochet in each space all the way around to the end of the round. At the end of round 6, your little shark should have the shape of its head going like this, and you should have a marker here of some kind showing you where the eyes are going to go. If you put the eyes in now, you won't be able to crochet through that because the eyes will be in the way. I'm going to tie a little knot in the end of my yarn here so that I don't accidentally pull those eye markers out. Move your round marker up for round 7, and in this round we're just going to do a single crochet in each space all the way around. You'll have 20 stitches at the end of the round. And in the next round after that, we're going to attach the fins. So I'll meet you at the start of round 8. Unfortunately, my video died for the first 5 stitches of round 8. So for round 8, just crochet forward the first 5 stitches and then we'll attach the fin. We're going to attach the left fin in the next 3 stitches. The eyes are at the front, of course, so this is the left side. This is the top side of the fin, it's the neater side, and we need to crochet in the side opposite the knot. Insert the hook through that first stitch in the fin from the underside, then through the next stitch in the body and do a single crochet stitch, joining them together. Then in the next space, we're not going to touch the fin. So in the next space, we're just going to crochet through the body. So do a single crochet through the body in the next space. And then in the next space, we're going to do the side next to the knot here. So go through the front and back parts of that stitch there. Then we're going to go through the body and pull through a loop here. Make sure your yarn tail and your little knot there are in behind this stitch and close that stitch. So there's your fin crocheted in, so you won't have to sew it in later. Next, we're going to crochet forward 8 stitches. When you've crocheted forward 8 stitches, we're going to use the same method to crochet on the other fin. So here's the other fin ready to go on, and the knot is also on the opposite side for this one. So you start on the side that doesn't have the knot on it. So make sure you turn this upside down. Put your hook through behind both the front and back parts of that first single crochet stitch we made. It could be a little tight and you can use your fingernail to help push it on it if it is. Then go through the body part as well and do a single crochet stitch. Then we're going to ignore the fin for the next stitch and just do a regular single crochet stitch there. Then we'll go through the back stitch, the last stitch there on the fin, behind both the front and back loops there. Then go through the body part. Make sure the knot is in behind your stitches there and do another single crochet stitch. Check that your knot is behind and close that single crochet stitch. So there's our 2 little fins already on, and there's 1 more single crochet stitch at the end of this round. There it is. Move your round marker up for round 9, and in this round we're just going to do a single crochet in each stitch all the way around. You'll have 20 stitches at the end of the round, and this is the last round for the body. At the end of round 9, we're going to do 1 single crochet stitch in the next space and a slip stitch in the next space. The reason we're adding 1 extra stitch to this round is to hide this work underneath the tail. Snip off a yarn tail and we'll do an invisible end. This is the space the yarn is coming through. We're going to go forward 2 stitches, go behind both the front and back parts of that loop, then come back to the one the yarn is coming through, so the last loop that you made, go through there and go through the back of the stitch below. Then we're going to pull that closed like that and make the stitches the same size as the other stitches. It's an even way to finish, but you can still see a little that is coming down there, so that's going to be hidden behind the tail. So that's all we need to do to crochet the body. Next we'll attach the eyes, the fin at the top and the fins at the back. Next we're going to insert the eyes in the spaces we marked in the body. Insert the safety eyes in the places we marked in round 6. Remove the marker you used and secure the eyes firmly with the clasp at the back. Next we're going to sew our little teeth across here. It's easier to sew across if you turn it upside down. We're going to start with the space immediately below the eye. So we'll start in this space here and leave a little tail to tie off at the end. And we're going to go across and do 5 stitches across this way. So go into the space just slightly to the right across, and then we'll go into the next space beside this one, so this space here from inside. Then we'll go across one space from that one and work our way across with 5 little stitches. So there's 2. I'll just speed this section up so I don't waste your time. Now you need to come into the next stitch across, and then we'll make our way back going like this. So come across to the next stitch across, and then we're going to sew back into that same space down here, the same space we used for the stitch coming across the first time. So go down into that space, then up into the same one we used for the top of this stitch. So into this space here. Then we'll go across into the next space down here and just make that all the way across to make little V stitches there to make the teeth. So we'll just keep coming across here. Try and keep your stitches nice and even, unless you want your shark to have little uneven teeth. And here's the last one. So your little shark's teeth should look like this. And you can tie off the 2 yarn tails here at the end. So there are our little teeth ready. If you'd prefer to make a smiling shark, the mouth is just 1 stitch away from the eyes on either side, and you just stitch down and across 1 stitch across the centre, and then up and across 1 stitch on the other side to make your little smile. And next we'll add the cheeks or the gills, whichever you choose. The little cheeks are just a magic ring made of embroidery floss of 6 single crochet stitches, and you sew them just between the fin here and the eye and the teeth. So they'll need to be about there. You'll need a smaller hook in a size appropriate for the yarn you're using. I'm just using a pink piece of embroidery floss. Make a loop the same as you would for any magic ring. Put your hook through the center, pull through a loop, and do a chain to anchor it. And then it's just 6 single crochet stitches. So here's 1. I'm just doing normal single crochet stitches, not amigurumi style. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And because you need to sew it to the face, you'll need to cut off enough yarn to be able to sew those little cheeks to the face. Pull the yarn until it slides through, and then close your magic ring. Next we'll sew an invisible end into the first stitch we made in the magic ring. Then I'm going back into the loop this yarn is coming from, and into the little piece of yarn below. Then make that the same size as the other stitches, so that looks quite neat there, and then we're going to sew that to the face. Align the blushing cheeks between the eyes, the fins and the teeth like this and sew them on. To make gills, sew 3 little diagonal stitches between the teeth and the fins on one side, and then 3 going the opposite way on the other side. The top fin is the same as the left fin, but you'll need to start your magic ring further along the yarn tail, because we'll use that yarn tail to sew the fin to the top of the head. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a magic ring loop. Put your hook through the center, pull through a loop, get ready to crochet and do a chain. So you need the chain to start to anchor it, and now we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches. So put your hook through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops, and again through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. Now we're going to do a 2 chain picket again, so 2 chain. Then put your hook through that little loop that's behind the loop at the front. I want to keep that nice and neat, so I'm going to use the loop behind. So put your hook through that space and then do a slip stitch through that and the loop on the hook. Then we're going to do a half double crochet stitch. So yarn over, put your hook through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Then we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches. So put the hook through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. And again through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. And again this time, have a longer yarn tail so that we can sew it to the body. Pull the loop large on the hook and pull that right through. Then we're going to close the magic ring. Like that. And this time we're not going to tie those yarn tails together. We're going to use those to sew it to the body. The yarn tail from the magic ring will anchor it to the center of the head, and we'll use this yarn tail to sew the fin to the body, and then we'll tie them off together inside the head. So you won't have to worry about yarn tails at the end. I've tied off the yarn tails from the side fins together. That way they'll be there in the center, and once you put the stuffing in, they can't pull out through here. Now we're going to sew that top fin down into the body. I've used the yarn tail from the magic ring of the fin and sewn it down through the center of the magic ring in the body. So I'll pull that tight. And now I'm going to sew the rest of that fin on. You need to make sure you have the longer side pointing towards the front of the face, and of course the shorter side to the back. Fold it in half. So this is the line I need to follow. So I've got it in half there, and I need to sew in line with that. I'm going to sew down into the stitch one round away from the magic ring. So down into this stitch here, and out the other side. And then I'm going to sew back into that same loop that this yarn was coming from, so that it looks like a stitch is going into the work here. So by doing that, it looks like it's been crocheted straight into the top of the head like that. So I'll go back down into a stitch just close to here, and then come out the back in the same distance away from the magic ring center, between the stitches in round 1 and round 2. So just pull that through, and then we're going to go through that back loop, the first stitch we did when we were making that magic ring to make the fin. I'll go through underneath both the front and back loops like you would for a crochet stitch, and then sew down into the other side of that stitch I was using here. Now you could go down and tie that off if you like, or you could do a few more stitches up in here if you're worried about it. You could just come into the center of the stitches in round 1 and sew across up in through the stitch here. So pull one of those stitches down like this, just to make it extra secure. And you could do that again here at the front as well if you like. That's not absolutely necessary, but if you want to do it that way, that will make it slightly more secure. Then sew straight down into the inside of the shark, turn it inside out and tie the yarn tails together. And just snip that off and turn it back in the right way. So there's our little shark with side and top fins attached. Next we'll make the tail fins. This time I didn't worry about doing the opposites. They're the same thing, and we'll just do 2 of them. So one of them faces one way and one of them faces the other way, but it doesn't matter. So again, we're going to use a magic ring, and we need a little bit of yarn to sew it to the body. So wrap the yarn around your finger, leaving a slightly long yarn tail. Put your hook through the center, pull through a loop, get ready to crochet, and do a chain to anchor it. Next, we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches. So put your hook through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. And again through the center, yarn over and pull through a loop, then yarn over and pull through both loops. And we're going to do a 2 chain picket, so do 2 chains. Put your hook through the little loop at the back, yarn over and pull through that and the loop on the hook, and then we're going to do 1 more single crochet stitch. Then we'll snip off a slightly longer yarn tail to sew it to the body, pull that loop until the yarn pulls through, and then pull the magic ring closed. So you'll need to make another one of those. So here are our little back fins, the tail fins. We're going to sew one on this way and one on upside down this way to make our little tail fins like that. To sew on the tail fins, we're going to have the shorter side on the outside, and we'll do one little stitch in the centre there to join them together. Start with the yarn tail from the centre of the magic ring, and we're going to sew it into the centre stitch in the last round. So fold in half again to find the centre. So you can align those side fins to find the centre back, or you could count the stitches across. Here's 1, 2, 3.5, and here's 1, 2, 3.5. So this is the stitch here that we need to sew into, and it happens to be immediately above where we did the invisible end. So sew into there, and we need to leave enough space to crochet through the stitches there in the last round. So I'm going to sew that through there and just leave it. Then put the other yarn tail onto the needle, and we'll sew this down and then tie them off, the 2 yarn tails off when we've finished. So make sure you have the shorter side at the outer side, which is going to be the base in this case. And we're going to sew through that last stitch, but we need to leave this space here for crocheting through for when we join the body and the base. So sew through that stitch and then sew forward into the next round like this. And then the same as we did for this top fin, go into the last stitch there as if we were crocheting. So go through both the front and the back parts of that loop. And then sew back down into this hole, the same space you were using before. That way that can make it look, got stuck. That way that can make it look like it's a stitch. So it looks like it's crocheted and it's coming straight out of the side. So it's crocheted in like that. So I'll go through in the center here and do one more stitch through there just to hold it down more securely. You don't have to do this, you could just leave it with the stitches we have so far. But as I said before, children play with my toys a lot, and so I don't want it to get broken. So I'm just going to sew through the side here. It's not being very cooperative. There we are. And then sew back down as close as I can to the fin here. So that's all you need to do to sew on that side of the tail fin, and then just tie off these yarn tails together. I'm just going to do a knot like this and make it as close to the body on the inside as I can. So push that right down, make sure it ends right next to the body. Pull that tight, and I'll snip off those yarn tails now. And starting again with the yarn tail from the magic ring, we'll sew this one row above what we're working on there. So there's the row that we worked into here. I'll sew it into one row above that. So this is the center of the tail fin, or the center of this side of the tail fin. So I'll pull that through and just pull the yarn off. That's just holding it in position. And I'll sew it with the other side of the yarn tail. So now keeping that in line, make sure you have the shorter side at the top, and these are going to meet in the center. And we'll go down into the next round. So we're using that round there. We'll go into this next round here, and we're keeping it in line with the fin at the top and the fin at the tail there. So line all that up. You can see it needs to go about here. So that's the next round up. I'm going to go into that space. And then sew out quite close. And sew back into that same loop that we went through, that it's coming from. So it looks like a crochet stitch. I'm going to go down into that same space again and then come back here towards the center where these are going to join. So put your needle through about the same space. I think I've got the same space there actually. Perfect. And then come through the base of this stitch behind both the front and back parts of that loop, like this. Then go back down into that same space that we're coming from there. So there are your tail fins, and I'm going to go just one step closer across this way and sew through again, just to make it a little bit more secure. I think I'll be coming out on that side. Sew through a stitch here. There it is. Then back down into that same space. And the last thing I do is to go back into the space in the center here again and do a little stitch there to hold them together. So I'll go back out into that same space again that we used in the center there. And I'll do a little stitch into this last loop here in the center of the bottom part of the tail, and into the center of the top part of the tail, that first stitch there into the center of that stitch. So see, that's pulling those two tails together so they can't come apart. Go back through that same space. So there it is. And down into the body, and then we'll tie off the yarn tail. So there's our little shark's tail, looking very cute. And on the inside, oops, I've sewn into that. I was going to use that later. Whoops, oh well. Now we'll just tie those two yarn tails together and snip it off neatly. And I've made a mistake here. This has been sewn in. It's not supposed to be. I should have told you to keep it out of the way. I'm sorry. So I'll sew that back up. I need that just up here to tie off with. So I'll just sew that in underneath these tail stitches here to get it back close to the edge. We're going to start the base with another magic ring anchor loop. This will stop it from ever coming undone. So make a loop around your fingers to make a magic ring. Put your hook through the center and pull through a loop. Then make a single chain to anchor it. We're going to start the base with a magic ring of 6 single crochet stitches. So just do 6 single crochet stitches. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And when you've made your loop of 6 single crochet stitches, pull the center close just enough to reach the other side. Insert a round marker, and then we're going to do an increase in each space. So put your hook through the center of the first single crochet stitch you made, and then do a single crochet stitch, and then do another one in the same space. Make sure you're not trapping the yarn tail from the center of the magic ring. We'll need that to close the magic ring after we've done round 2. So we'll do the same the whole way around. We'll do 2 single crochets in each space all the way around, and you'll have 12 stitches at the end of the round. Now pull your loop large, find the center of the magic ring and pull that closed so that that circle closes. So if you pull it, you should close it a little bit, and then remember there's a second loop going around. So if you pull it closed again, I'm not strong enough, I'm getting too old, I'll use my anchor loop there and pull it closed a bit tighter. Move your round marker up for the next round, and in this round we're going to do an increase and a single crochet repeated 6 times. So insert your hook in the first space and do a single crochet stitch, and that first space is an increase, so put your hook through the same space again And this time we're going to start trapping that yarn tail as we go around. So there's an increase in the first space, and then we're going to do a single crochet in the next space and trap the yarn tail. And then we'll repeat that 6 times. So it's an increase and a single crochet repeated 6 times. Remember to trap this yarn tail as you go around. Now I'm up to the knot in the magic ring anchor loop. So I'm going to tuck that behind until I've crocheted forward 2 or 3 stitches so I get past that knot. Now I've crocheted past that knot and I'm going to crochet into the center of that magic ring loop. So in the next space, put your hook through the stitch, then through the center of that anchor loop and do a single crochet stitch. And I'm on my increase, I'm going to do another one through that space and through the anchor loop. And then there's a single crochet at the end of this round. Round 4 is a partial round. We're going to keep doing what we did for round 3. So insert your hook and do an increase in the next space and a single crochet in the next space, and we'll do that one more time. So we'll do an increase in the next space and a single crochet in the next space. That will get us 20 stitches, the same as the body. And then we're going to do a slip stitch in the next space to draw that bump down to make that nice and smooth. Then we'll cut off a yarn tail. It doesn't need to be terribly long. Pull the yarn through. Then we'll do an invisible end. This is the space the yarn is coming from. We're going to move forward 2 spaces, go underneath both parts of that stitch, then come back to the space the yarn is coming from. This is the loop the yarn was coming through, so we're going to go into that space, into that space, and then into the back of the loop below. Then pull that to make sure it's the same size stitch as all the other stitches around. And there's the base ready to go. You don't need your round markers there now. So there's the base ready. So next we're going to attach the base and the body together. And the way that I hold them in place is to tie the yarn tail from the last stitch in the base and the yarn tail from the last stitch in the body together. And you can trim that straight away. I tie them close together because you don't want that slip stitch coming loose and starting to gape. So just tie them close together and then snip off the yarn tail. Next we're going to align all of the stitches in the body and the base. There should be 20 in the base and 20 in the body. We're crocheting around this way, and you'll want to start on this side of that tail, the shark tail at the back. That way when we do our slip stitch at the end, it can hide underneath the tail. So I'm going into that stitch immediately before the tail there and into this corresponding stitch. So they're tied together there, so the corresponding stitch will be probably this one. That's still sitting neatly there. And get some yarn and put a slip knot. Leave yourself a bit of a yarn tail. We'll use that to help us tie off at the end. So make a slip knot. Then put the slip knot on your hook. And we're going to pull that slip knot through both layers, like this. Then we're going to do slip stitches all the way around. So put your hook through the next space in the body, both the front and back parts of that loop. The tail's a little bit in the way there. And then the next space in the base part. So behind both the front and back parts of that loop as well. Then pull on a loop. So pull it through the base and the body and the slip knot. Then go into the next space in the body, the next space in the base, there it is, and pull on a loop, pull it through the base, pull it through the body, and pull it through the loop on your hook. And we'll just do those all the way around. All the rest should be quite easy. We're going to crochet around about 3/4 of the way or 2/3 of the way, and then we'll add some stuffing into the center. So just align each stitch neatly. Make them just slightly looser than normal so that it doesn't pull in too tightly. So you can see that we're basically doing a slip stitch, top stitch kind of around the top there, around the bottom there, to hold the two pieces together. That'll give us a nice flat base so that it can sit neatly wherever you like to keep it. So keep crocheting through the body and the base all the way around until you get to roughly the front of the fin. When you get to the second fin on the side, you've got enough space left there to do some filling. So we need to fill it with stuffing now. Pull the loop large so you don't accidentally pull your slip stitches undone. And get some stuffing and add it firmly. So push it right up into the top. And you want it to be nice and firm. Be careful when you're stuffing around the eyes that you don't make them sit weirdly. If you push them accidentally in the wrong way, you can make them sit funny like this. Like if you had it sticking up like that, that would look weird. So be careful as you stuff around the eyes. And make sure you stuff it well. You don't want it to be overfilled, but you don't want it to go flat either. Stuffing does settle over time, so squish it down to make sure you've got enough stuffing in there because you can't add any later. So push it in firmly and then push on the outside to make sure you've got it all settling down well. So when that's closed, that should be just right. Check to make sure the eyes aren't pointing askew. I think that's looking quite fine there. So I'm just going to crochet the rest of it closed. So you'll need to push your stuffing down now so it doesn't get caught in your stitches. So through the body, through the base, and then pull a piece of yarn through all of them. Through the body, through the base, yarn over and pull a loop through all of them. Through the body, through the base, yarn over and pull a loop through all of them. 2 more stitches, body, base, pull a loop through all of them, and the last one, body, base, and pull a loop through all of them. This is where we started with the slip knot, and I'm going to go through that one as well because I want this yarn to be coming across here the same as all of the other ones. If you stopped just now, there wouldn't be that stitch holding this last one in place. So pull through there as well. And when you've done that, cut off a yarn tail long enough to be able to sew a little with. Pull the yarn so it pops through the loop. Thread on a needle. And then we're going to do a slip stitch over top of these last stitches here. So there's the knot from the slip knot. I'm going to pull that down inside. Then sew over top of the slip knot into the next slip stitch just here. So here's the end of that stitch there. I'm going to sew through there, then sew back into this stitch here where the yarn is coming from. It's a little hard to see because the tail's in the way. So we sewed out of this stitch through the next stitch across here. Then we're sewing back into this stitch where the yarn was coming from, and we're covering over that first stitch we made. So sew down into that stitch, into the stitches below that you would have been going through, and then I'm going to go down 1 row. Can you see what I'm saying here? So this is where it would come through if you were going to crochet there, but I'm going to sew down 1 stitch below that. Can you see there's a gap there? I'm carefully going through that gap, making sure I'm not catching any of the stitches there. Make the stitch the same size as the others. Then put your needle onto the tail of the slip knot that we started with and sew it also down to that next stitch space. So make sure you're not catching any of the stitch there and sew it down in under there. And then we're going to tie that off. So I'll tie it off 3 times. Now the next part is optional. If you want to, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You can sew down into that space we came out of because you're going to hide that knot inside the stitches here. And if you like, if you don't want your shark to be a squishy shark and become weird like this, You can sew some stay stitches up into the top here and then back down into the base, just 2 or 3 of them, so that it can't make weird shapes like this. Or if you'd like it to be able to be squishy and you can make it into any shape you like, then just sew your thread through to anywhere in the body. It doesn't matter where. I'm just going to go up here because I'm going to show you how to do stay stitches. And then you just pull until the knot here pops through. Pop, there it goes. If you're going to let it remain squishy, all you need to do there is pull tight and snip off. But if you want to do some stay stitches, I'll show you how to do that now. So if you're not going to do any stay stitches, people can play with your little shark and make it look like a squished fish like this, which would be funny too, I guess. And like that. If you do want to do some stay stitches, make sure you try and do them in a way that the stitches aren't very visible. So I'm here next to the back part of that top fin. I'm going to sew across here 1 stitch, and then I'm going to sew down into the base. And by doing that, I've created a little stay stitch, they're called as far as I know, that holds this in place so it can't be squished. But as I said, you don't necessarily need them, only if you desperately want them. So I'm going to sew across another stitch here. If you really want them to be invisible, you can sew underneath some of the stitches like this. Like you can sew under there and then pull that down, or you can just sew straight across the gap here. And I'll sew up close to the front of the head now. There. And pull that a little. You don't need to pull it too tight or you'll distort it the opposite way. So instead of being this size shark, you'll turn it into a squished shark. So don't pull it too tight, just pull it gently and then sew across a stitch so that you're holding that down as well. Now I'm coming out the other side. So that's all there is to it. Just do a few little stitches there to hold that in place so it can't get all squished funny. So I'm going to do just one more on the other side, halfway along, like that, and then into a space here. And I'm trying to come down here near the bottom, near to where that stitch is. Make sure again that you're not catching any of the stitches from the base in this needle. That's holding that nicely without pulling it in a weird way. And I'm going to move this yarn tail across to that same space and tie off. So it's only 1 space away. I'll sew across to that space there. Again, not catching any stitches there. Now we'll tie that off and then hide the stitches in the body like I said before. So I'll just tie that off. It's too short. So go back into that same space this yarn tail knot is coming from. Poke it through anywhere in the body that you like. Pull it until that knot pops through like this. Pop, it's gone. And then sew this other yarn tail through as well. So again, you can go out anywhere you like in the body, like this. Pop. Then just massage that a little to make that hole disappear. Then we pull this tight, snip it off. And the other one, pull it tight and snip it off. Don't go too close to your stitches, you don't want to cut your stitches. And then you can massage the body to make that disappear. I think I pulled that stay stitch a little too tight, so all you need to do is pull that up with your needle and it will make its shape the way you like it. So now the only thing left to do is to straighten up your fins. Make sure they're pointing in the right way, in a way that you like. So cute. Make this one point backwards and this one too. And there is your little shark. All done. Isn't he cute? I hope you enjoyed the whole process of making your own little shark. I like to end with a wish for you today, and my wish for you today is that God's loving presence surrounds you and fills your heart with joy and peace. My So Cute You'll Want to Make 10 series is growing all the time. Please check back sometime and see what new designs I've made. How many sharks did you end up making, and what colours did you choose? Let me know in the comments what creatures you'd like me to try next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.